So, 1 2 1 2. I wanted to just jump on here and give my first impressions and initial thoughts of the Moog Matriarch. So the Moog Matriarch is obviously a 4-voice paraphonic Moog synthesizer. Yeah, but this for my beat maker people. So if you ain't the type to flip a sample, add some synths, and throw a trap beat onto something, do some boom bap, this video probably ain't for you, but I don't exclude anybody that's interested in watching. So yo, let's go on this little journey and talk about the Moog Matriarch. To kind of get started, out of the picture or out of the camera frame, that away is my groove box. And what you're hearing is a patch that I made, and we're gonna kind of go over this joint and then maybe make a similar patch. We'll see if we can recreate that patch. The Moog Matriarch is just so rich. It has that typical Moog sound. This thing and the grandmother kind of feel sort of vintage. It's not quite like the more modern Moog sound of, say, the Mother 32 and the sub fatties and stuff like that. This goes in a different direction. So anyway, I made this little groove. I'm gonna play a little bit of it. But first, the parts that come from the Matriarch. So what you're hearing right here is the Matriarch, and don't worry, we're gonna get to this, but you're hearing like the filters, you're hearing the oscillators that are tuned slightly different to different octaves, and then played, a sequence played. And then I also have the envelope controlling the amount of delay, the amount of noise, and I'm also modulating, I think, the PWM of the 4th oscillator. So anyway, and this is what I came up with. Right? And I just got that soloed right now. So this is the context of what we'll be creating. All of that sort of analog goodness, those chords are all coming from the Matriarch, and this is what it's like. All right, so what I really dig about this joint is that it just has such a vintage feeling, right? So I love the ARP section, the ARP in the sequence. So you got several sequence banks that you can kind of go through and save different sequences in. You got your modulation here. Your utility section, there's 2 of them. You got 4 oscillators. The oscillators can be, you have pitch in, wave out on each one of them. You have pulse width modulation in and linear FM in on each of the 4 oscillators. You can tune those from 16, 8, let's see. Let's turn all those down, and here one. No noise. Open up the filter a bit. All right. A little bit of envelope. All the way tracking. So what you're hearing is oh, sounds so good. What you're hearing is 1 oscillator. You could tune that to 16 feet, 8 feet, 4 feet, 2 feet, right? You have your triangle. Triangle is 16. at 8, 4, 2. You have your sawtooth, 16, 8, 4, 2. Then you have your square, 2, 4, 8, 16. Oh, it gets low. So there was a lot of questions on whether or not it's worth getting the grandmother and the matriarch together. In my opinion, if you only have the grandmother to do those basses and those leads, I honestly think that, you know, this thing can do everything that the grandmother can do. It's just that it doesn't have the reverb, the spring reverb, right? So if you could deal with that, you could definitely use this as a mono synth, and you got 4 voices to stack on top of each other. But for sort of Dilla-esque sort of hip hop bass and boom bap sort of bass, you can get that out of this really easily, and all you really need is 1 oscillator. So that's a whole nother story, but just to kind of give you that idea, this is a little bit of what you're working with. Alright, so that's just 1 oscillator. You can start to stack oscillators as you turn things up. I have the paraphony mode, voice mode in 1. So now I'm stacking 2 oscillators. Let's stack 3. Let's stack 4. So let's put them all on triangle. But you can start to mix them up, and this is what I really love about this, because you can kind of detune and set these to different octaves. I'm gonna put 1 on 16 on let's put it on square, and then you can put 2 on 8. We'll put 3 on 4, and then 4 on 2 feet. So you have these tuned across all of the available octaves. Each one has its own octave. You could do fine tune. You can also do sync, and then, you know, tell it which one's a sync. And this will basically do like a hard sync against the first oscillator. You can see how things get really rich. Oscillator on square. I'll put the second one on triangle. And the third one is on pulse width. We'll put the last one on square too. And so you see how this thing gets so harmonically rich. And I have all the oscillators about halfway. You can start to dial them in. All right, so you have the mixer, obviously, and then you can add noise. Let's dial that down a little bit. And the highest one, which is oscillator 4, I'm gonna dial back a little bit. As a matter of fact, the higher the oscillator gets in octaves, I'm gonna dial it back a little bit and make the lower end a little more prominent. Yo, listen to that filter, like it's gonna boil over at any second. Back to this filter, did you hear how sweet that is? I'm dialing in a little bit of the spacing. just how far apart that dual filter kind of gets away from each other. So you can have this filter in stereo, low pass like it is now. Right? So dig. You could take the filter and you can put it in series, parallel, or stereo. And also it has the stereo delay, and it opens this joint up so much. Now what really opens it up is the patch, the available sort of patch bays and patch options that it has, the CV. And we're going to do a patch, like I said, back to this. But before we get there, here's that delay. Set it to sync. Or you could do ping pong. All right. So obviously it's a 4-voice paraphonic synth, so you could play chords. Let's dial these in a little bit. I'm just going to play the ARP, and here's what's dope about the ARP too, because if I turn these voices down, I got only the first voice open, and as I hit a note, you're only hearing that one voice. But when you start getting the arpeggiator involved, and then you open up those other voices in the mixer and start just kind of patching and seeing what you get, it becomes a really incredible, and happy accidents happen, and then you could get some really dope sort of soundscape and design stuff off. So you're hearing something a little weird because I have the other voices turned down and no delay. Now we're going to start to add in the other voices, and it starts to get interesting. Oscillator 2. Put a little delay on it. Not a lot of feedback, a little bit of spacing. Now let's add in oscillator 3. Oscillator 4. We got a little noise. Bring that down just a little bit. I got tracking on 4. A little bit more to envelope. And a little more delay. I mean, it gets so good so quick. It has a lot of sweet spots. The whole damn thing is a sweet spot. So, I'm gonna start patching now. Let's see what I want. Square out of the LFO to the attenuator, output into the mult. Now, I have a few things that I can do here. Because, sorry, I gotta keep that around. What do I want to do here? Now I'm just modulating a couple of things, but you can see how things can get interesting really quick. So now what I want to do, actually I want to take, let's take sample and hold out and throw that into here. Now let's throw sample and hold. It's basically going to pulse width modulation on oscillator 4 and to the cutoff here on the filter. And now, if I do sync enable and then sync oscillator 4, you can start to get some real interesting stuff there too. Start to detune the oscillators a bit. All right. You can totally set up these oscillators any way that you want to and go forth and kind of design your patch according to what's already there. But when you start to patch, then you start to get into a lot of really cool sweet spots, weird, quirky stuff. Obviously, what I was just playing is a sequence of, a chord melody. So you can do that and totally just change up everything. So I'm hitting 4-note chords and I could change the oscillators in each of those, notes and really get some really wild, quirky stuff out of it. And it just depends on how tame or how far you want to go. And that's what's special about this thing. So yeah, that's the Matriarch. So yeah, this is Bboytechreport. Yeah, for more information, subscribe. Make sure you stay tuned for the Beat People podcast every first and third Saturday of the month, and there'll be more stuff to come. All right, shout out to MSX too. Peace.